welcome everyone to our Spring 2022 series of OTF Connects webinars entitled Supporting Teacher Efficacy and Student Engagement. My name is Peter Beans and I'm honored to be your moderator today for today's session with Dimitra Tsanos entitled Inquiry-Based Learning with Practical Lessons Using GIS in the Geography Indoor and Outdoor Classroom. Before we begin, I'd like to do a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge we are gathered in the traditional territories of various Indigenous peoples, and we further recognize our duty to support the achievement of the calls to actions stemming from the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. Before we begin, I'd like to welcome Dimitra Tsanos. Dimitra is the president of the Ontario Geography Consultants Association. She is an assistant curriculum leader for geography at the Humberside CI and the TDSB. She also serves as president of the Toronto Geography Teachers Association. Dimitra studied geotechnologies as part of Ryerson's geography program, and she has embedded it in all aspects of her teaching for the last 19 years. She enjoys taking her students on field trips and learning outdoors. So now let's turn it over to Dimitra. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy that lots of people have signed up for this session. I'm going to just share my screen. And I hope that you saw the link in the chat for the survey. If you did not, then here is the QR code if you'd like to do that right now. The link is also in the chat if you joined before we started at 4:30. So feel free to scan that if you have a QR code, just so I can get to know you and where you're coming from and what kind of knowledge base you have. It's always interesting to see where people are coming from. And Survey 123 is a tool that you could use with your students as well, which is why I used it. Google Forms is something that maybe you're familiar with. So Survey 123 is a great tool, an app that you can find on the ArcGIS Esri Canada's website as well. And I'll be talking about a few other apps that I use in my classroom. But it's a great survey to use if you want the kids to get outside and look at, a tree inventory, or maybe you're looking at litter and seeing where the litter is predominantly found, or whatever else you want to survey. It's a great tool. I've used it not only in geography, but also in HSC. Hopefully you got a chance to scan that. And we'll revisit the survey maybe when you get a chance to finish up. So just as people are doing the survey and joining, I'm going to show this really funny clip that I like to show at the beginning of the grade 9 geography course when we're talking about Canada and looking at the map and where things are and the issues in different places. I start off with this funny clip. I'll just show a little, the first minute of it. And the whole series is found on Prime, but you can find this on YouTube as well. It's called The Pale Tourist, and Jim Gaffigan's a comedian who visited Canada and, makes comments about Canada. It's quite funny.
Hey everyone, this is a clip. It's so detailed on the East Coast, and then it's just wide open spaces. It's almost like someone was working on it and they fell asleep. And his boss comes over and is like, "Are you done?" "What? Yeah, I just got to put some names in Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia." "Oh, so much land." "Newfoundland." The boss is like, "Are you done?" Yeah, I'm done. Columbia, that's a country, all right. British Columbia. I've been to British Columbia. It's not very British or Columbian. Vancouver was like a rainy Seattle. Spent a week in Vancouver. Somehow it rained for 2 weeks. Well, you guys had fun naming things Vancouver out there in British Columbia. Vancouver Island, Vancouver City, which is not on Vancouver Island, North Vancouver, West Vancouver, South Vancouver, Washington State, you can have a Vancouver. Everyone gets a Vancouver. Everyone gets one. It does appear you guys struggled with naming things a little bit. It's like Regina, Moose Jaw. Do you want people to go these places? And then, of course, there's the St. John's fiasco. St. John, New Brunswick, and then right next to it, St. John's, Newfoundland. I'm saying this like you don't know. We know! We live here, we know! But what, it never came up? Nobody took a boat from one place to the other one. Hey, that other place has the same name as this place. Nobody confronted Newfoundland like, hey, Newfoundland, St. John, New Brunswick is the oldest city in Canada, so don't use that name. And Newfoundland's like, okay. Oh, shoot. Well, what happened? No, it's different. It's different. Our capital, St. John's. That's the same name. No, it's different. You spell out Saint, and ours is just ST, so it could stand for street. Does yours stand for street? No, it stands for Saint.
All right, so it's a really funny show. I highly recommend it, and I show the full 10 minutes as kind of like the mind's on when we start talking about Map of Canada.
Hey everyone, this is
It's quite funny. Just wondering if anybody loves playing Global in their classroom or at home. I play it every day with my grade 9 class. So a show of hands, does anyone actually use Global in their classroom? Not that I can see your hands because I'm presenting. Okay. Anybody use it? One? Okay. So Global is a great game, and we'll play it together right now. There's a couple of different ones for geography since all of these Wordles games have expanded and become so popular. So every day there's a new mystery country, and so your goal is to guess the mystery country using the fewest number of guesses. And so the beige is like you're not even close, and then as you get darker to like a maroon color, it's you're hot and you're really close, and then green is you got it. So I'm just gonna open up Global, and if you want to type in the chat what country you'd like me to type in first. Oh, you do Wordle, Lisa, good. So what country should we start with? Feel free, Canada, okay. So not super close, so let's try maybe a different continent. Greece, okay, that's a good guess. My parents are from Greece. Let's try Greece. Okay.
You have a black rectangle over the screen right now. Do you maybe have the chat open on top of it?
Oh, I do, yeah, because I'm trying to see. Is it better or, oh, I see.
No, you'll have to move it right out of the way, I think.
Okay. So that's not working. Okay. So you were a little bit closer. So now is that fine?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So you'll have to unmute yourself, or maybe Peter, you can tell me the country.
Another guess of Greece. I shouldn't say guess.
Okay, I said Greece. So what's the next one after we know that that's kind of we're hotter? So I know someone said South Africa, but that's not really close to Greece. So we're going.
Nothing after.
Nothing. Anyone else want to guess?
France.
France. Okay, that's a good guess. Not so great. So, so maybe like over this way. Right?
And then we've got Slovenia came up.
Okay. Slovenia. This game always tests my spelling abilities. Okay, it's not Slovenia.
And then we had Turkey.
Turkey. Okay. Okay, we're pretty dark. That's good. We're getting closer.
And then Palestine.
No. It's lighter red.
And then we had Lebanon. 2 guesses there for Lebanon.
No, we're too light, so it's not in that zone.
And then Spain.
Is it?
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Is it Latvia?
Latvia, good guess. Yeah. Okay, it's still the same color. So like it's between these two countries. So this is the zone. And actually at the bottom, it tells you where the closest border is. I forgot to tell you that. I didn't discover that until like 3 weeks ago. I've been playing this for a while.
Have we tried Spain?
Spain is like too far. This is the darker the color, that's where the hot zone is.
And then we had Romania.
Okay, Romania, yeah. That's a good guess.
Great.
Oh, okay, that's even darker. So we are very hot.
And then we had Armenia.
No. So it's neighboring Romania.
Yeah. And then we had Poland, but that's not it.
Okay.
I shouldn't say that.
Sometimes once you find the country, you might change your guess.
Yes. And then we had Ukraine.
And you are correct. So I already played this afternoon with my students. So I knew that the actual, so the record, we actually got it in one once, which was very exciting. So it's good when you play the game, you find the country, and then maybe you pull it up on like World Factbook or something, and then you can do a little bit of, let's find out a little detail about the country and make it a part of the lesson. So does anyone else have a suggestion on how they use it in their classroom?
This came out after Wordle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wordle really started a lot of offshoots.
Yeah, there's so many. There's another one called Worldle, and it just shows you the shape of the country. It's a little trickier because sometimes they have these like random islands that I've never heard of, and you're like, what? So Global has like all of the countries are ones you've heard of, and they're, not a little island. So I do quite like that. And does anyone use this? I don't see if you use this and share what you do, or you can unmute yourself and share what you do.
Hi, I have a question with the app or the website. So will it tell you about the country, or do you go somewhere else to learn about?
Yeah, so this is just a game, and then I'll just go on like World Factbook and look up the country, and then I'll be like, oh, this is their GDP, and and so we might just do a little bit of a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And in elementary, in our board, we have Culturegrams, which is an excellent database that features countries all over the world. So I could see using this game and then jumping over to Culturegrams. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Yeah, my 8 and 10-year-old love this game, so it's definitely applicable to the elementary board for sure. So that's another fun minds on to get my students going. And sometimes I forget, and they're like, "Oh, we got to play Global," and so they're really going. So all of the things that I'm talking about today are all about the inquiry process and how to build these skills within our students at grade 9. So then, as we teach them through to grade 11 and 12, and even in the middle school and the primary grades, like it's always important to have students develop these skills so that they can like solve real life problems and communicate their ideas in different ways. And so, of course, the goals of geography, I have some things hyperlinked in this PowerPoint. So, Peter, I don't know if you attach, if you can put the link in the chat, then you will have access to all the links and all the assignments. Everything is hyperlinked within this PowerPoint, so then you have access to all the websites as well. And so I have an anchor chart in my classroom with the what's, where, why, there, why, care, what next, which I always refer to whenever we're talking about an issue. And a lot of the assignments that I'll be talking about uses that framework and organizers around those 4 questions. And so by, grade 12 students automatically know at the start, they have a little bit of trouble. Like, what do you mean what's where? And I'm like, well, where is it? So, but as long as you use this language and the anchor chart really helps, I put it up. And so an example of the anchor chart is in that hyperlink. And so that's our basis for a lot of our assignments. And of course, with spatial technology, which is what most of these examples are addressing, it's one of the concepts of geographic thinking. All of these are, and so it's really important that you try to show all of these 4 strands as like, throughout all the assignments, and I'll show you how they link to all of these. So the first assignment that I'm going to share with you is in grade 9. I really wanted to, I have always wanted to go outside. I mean, as geography teachers, a lot of you probably take field trips, and then COVID hit. And then I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to go on field trips when we're not allowed to go on field trips? But we were allowed to go walking and go to local parks. So luckily I'm near High Park. If you're familiar with Toronto, High Park is a really beautiful large park that is really close to Lake Ontario. And so it's a really wonderful spot to walk to do different things. And so this is what spurred my interest, and the kids really loved going. And with our long classes, if you remember, they were like 3 hours long. It was a good way to take up some time. And it still works even with the new schedule, as we keep on fluctuating from schedule to schedule. So outdoor learning is really important. And so this could be done in any local park, and anywhere in your neighborhood, you could go for a walk around the block and do different things and learn about geography in your own neighborhood. So we'll look at one example where we did just the local park. The other one, we're looking at climate change, and we do a climate change walk just around the neighborhood, and it took maybe like 20 minutes. So it's just a nice way to kind of switch it up and change it up. And, you don't have to be out the whole period. It just could be for half the period, and then come back and take it up and make your maps. And then also there's both of them it's a walk, and then it's associated with a climate change spatial journal. So this is the first assignment. So we made, this was for the final project for unit number 1. We were looking at themes in our neighborhood and taking our own photos and uploading them to Google Drive, and so associating like landmarks, a theme, and then doing a little bit of research. So they had to go on to websites to like visit maybe bike share and find out like how many bike share depots are there across the city, or there's a really beautiful mural art under one of the bridges, and then they had to do a little bit of research about, what is this program all about? And there's a street art program that the city of Toronto is a part of. And so they did a little bit of research around that. Some of them they might not find as much about, like if it's like a retail store. We talked about density, and like there's one street that has like a lot of apartments, and then there's another street with like low density. And so we talked about the different types of density and why they happen, and how main roads and TTC, and sometimes those are big influencers. And so then we went into High Park and talked a little bit about the ecosystem there in the Black Oak Savanna. And so like you could see how this could apply to any neighborhood that you live in. And so we created a shape, which is a new skill. They had to create a shape in Google. This is Google My Maps. So in the beginning, I started off with Google My Maps, and then we evolved towards ArcGIS afterwards. So just to get them familiar with how to use tools and clicking. And so they make the shape. They learn how to make a line with the root and do shapes within. And so the assignments are all there hyperlinked, and there are video tutorials and written instructions for various learners. There's also organizers that we take along with us on our trips. So I have the boards for all the kids, and they have their organizer, and then they take notes as I talk. And sometimes they use their phones to take notes, but they'll use their phones to take photos as well. And I take photos as well and post them in case someone doesn't have a phone, but pretty much everyone does. Or they could buddy up and, be with somebody who has a phone. So I've got 4 hyperlinks here. So there's an exemplar of a finished map, the actual assignment that's there, the organizer that we use for on their clipboards, and then a video tutorial of me starting them off, because we had a lot of virtual learners in quad 1 and still in quad 2, semester 1 and 2. So I'm using old language. And so I feel like the video tutorial is quite helpful, especially if people are like isolating at home and they miss class. So
in downtown, right? That's awesome.
Oh, someone's unmuted. So that's for that assignment. So that would be one of our
nice
projects at the start. The second assignment that I do for Unit 2, which is the physical environment, is looking at global warming, climate change, and human activities. And so we used to just look at it like Canadian global, and I thought, well, why not add the local element as well? So Esri Canada had this really cool idea that I kind of took from their website. They had created something, and I'll show you the link for that. But the video tutorials to make the map is here, and the link to start your story map. So this is a TDSB link. So if you are in Toronto, you could use this link. Otherwise, to go to ArcGIS Esri, you may have your own link for your own board to use their website. So I'm not sure all the different boards that are here and whether or not you have a license with ArcGIS, but you can also do this in Google Maps. So I used to, originally I did this through Google Maps when it was a bit more tricky and challenging to create accounts for students, but now it's like a Google single sign-on and it's really easy to log in. So it depends on which board you're a part of. So their final product was a spatial journal assignment again, but it was using story maps. And so their inquiry question was, how does climate change affect different parts of the world? And so I'll just click on the link.
Just so everyone's aware, I'll be sharing the link to the presentation. You'll probably receive an email tomorrow with a link in it.
Oh, you can't put it in the chat now?
Yeah, I did the first one.
Oh, okay, thanks. The is this of the PowerPoint, the links that you're posting, or no?
No, but I can do that.
Oh yeah, thanks. And then everyone will just have access to it. So here's an exemplar of a story map that can be done in ArcGIS. And it was two twins that actually did it together. And so they would, on their maps, they need to include a global example that we learned we watched Before the Flood documentary. And there was lots of Canadian and world examples in that film. And one of them was Indonesia. They looked at palm oil and deforestation. And then they have to look at Canada. And so there were a couple examples in the film as well. They looked at the oil sands and Baffin Island. And then the local example is from our walk. And so they have to include a couple of pictures of the issue in their photos. They can add up to 5, and they can actually also add a video if they wanted to. Their title, and then the what is, where, why, there, why care. They did a lot of research, why care, and what next. And so there's lots of different templates and designs. It's really a great program. And so they did Kiribati. And so I give them the option of working with partners or with by themselves. So sometimes I find that helps where you have multiple levels of students in a class, and you might want to pair up a stronger student with a weaker student just to help them with this part of it. So local, we talked about green roofs as one of our issues, and so that's a local issue. And then you can put your bibliography at the bottom. So it's a really nice way to present information, and and if you click on the different circles on the map, you can flip through the different ones. So that is an example of a story map using ArcGIS. And feel free to ask questions or anything as I'm going through this. So there's a lot of scaffolding that happens before we actually make this map. So like I said, we watched Before the Flood, and there's questions and answers that are hyperlinked there. Nature of things, we sometimes watch Hot Times in the City to look at some of the issues in the city, and this is off of Curio, if you have Curio on your virtual library. A lot of good reading articles, and so I've hyperlinked like the UN and looking at the sustainable goals, and another article from BBC about climate refugees, and they also look at a flood map with NASA. I'll actually show you that one. It's really cool. I don't know if you've seen it before. I really love this one. I discovered it years ago. And so you can actually give scenarios on how you can, let's say there's a 20-meter rise in Europe. Oh, well, there goes Amsterdam and, lots of other places. If you go to Venice, you could see it's all underwater. If you go to Florida, That's also underwater. And this is really good because in the video, they talk about Miami and how they're raising the roads to eliminate flooding, but it's only going to last for 50 years. And so you talk about long-term versus short-term and the differences with, those two ideas, New Orleans and Southern Water. So it's a really great map. So one of the assignments is that they have to like work in a group and just look at different continents and how different places are affected by a 20-meter rise or 5-meter rise. Even there are some places along the coast, like even in downtown Vancouver. So great map that I like to use, and they really like looking at it. And so there's like all of this stuff, they're doing beforehand. It's and then that kind of builds their knowledge, and that way they can make their story map really great. So that's for that assignment. This one was the climate change indicator neighborhood walk. So you can do a short. We actually did a shorter walk this semester because we had less time. But if you have more time, you can make it longer. And so this walk, we got outside and just looked at, looking at solar panels, let's say, and maybe your school has solar panels. That would be a cool way to kind of talk about all of that. But we do have a house that's in our neighborhood that we walk by, and they have a solar panel. So when I first did this walk, I didn't know what I was going to find in the neighborhood. And so we just kind of walked around the first time and tried to look for different things. And I was very happy to find this house with the solar panels on it.
We had a few comments about that scaffolding document. They couldn't access it. It wasn't public.
Oh, okay. I'll have to, I'll make changes to that after we're done. So slide, so none of these links were working for you guys?
Well, that's the first one we encountered that was rejected.
Okay, I'll make sure to change them. I thought I double checked all of them. So how green is your neighborhood is that doc that I was talking about that was really helpful, and that link will bring you to Esri's whole idea of like how to walk into your neighborhood and look for positive and negative contributors to climate change. And so I created this map that we use as we go out and looking at trees, and our neighborhood's pretty good for trees, but maybe your neighborhood isn't great for trees. So that could be something you look at. Looking at food security, we have a community garden really close to our school, but where else could we put a community garden? And then we start looking at like websites. There's like a City of Toronto community garden website, and you can see where they are, and then we start looking at patterns and trends and saying like, oh well, look, there's nothing in this neighborhood. Maybe you should suggest more food security and maybe even green roofs or something like that. So we also talk about green roofs along where all the apartment buildings are. And then like we saw the solar panel on a house. Oh well, why aren't all the houses equipped with solar panels? And so we talk about maybe having more incentives for government support on doing that in your house. We look at bike share as well, and there's a lot of bike share depots on our walk. So we start looking at the bike share map and say like, oh, they just stop at Old Mill. Like, what are people supposed to do? Just like get off their bikes and like there's no continuity, like even along the subway line. So there could be a suggestion to expand the bike share depots further west and in other pockets that are lacking. And we look at design of different buildings. So there's a Grenadier retirement building on Bloor that has multi-level. There's like a green roof, and there's lots of businesses underneath. And we talk about like how sustainable neighborhoods are made, where you can walk everywhere and they're very walkable, and so that way you don't have to drive everywhere. And your dentist is there, and your orthotics shoes store is there, and like everything is within walking distance on Bloor. So it's really perfect for people, especially in a retirement home where they might not be driving, so it might be easier for them. And then we go to Tim Hortons as a little treat, and then we talk about the fact that they have a lot of things that are not very environmentally friendly, especially like now they've switched the roll up the rim to a card, but that's something that we talk about as well.
Michael mentioned that he does story maps in his classes as well as including his food and culture class, which is kind of cool.
Oh, cool. Food and culture. There's not too many of those around. That's cool. What board are you in? I remember a university professor talking about that. I forget his name.
Feel free to unmute if you like. Renfrew.
Okay. I can't remember which board he's in. Kingsley, I think his name was. Anyway, so moving on to grade 11. Don't know if anybody teaches CGF 3M. Does anyone teach it? It's not as a popular course as, of course, the grade 9. Oh, someone.
You just raise your hand if you teach it.
Yeah, Lisa. So, someone else.
You?
Oh, good, Rob. Okay. So I've taught this. It's one of my favorite courses, and sometimes some places call it forces of nature. We call it natural disasters, and it's a great course to look at a lot of the issues around climate change, and so we look at water as our one of the main topics in one of the units. And looking at climate change and water and some of the challenges that Indigenous people face in different communities in Canada and how they can be prevented for the future. So this series of assignments was written through the UIEC, which is the Urban Indigenous Education Center in Toronto. And so it was a series of lessons for various senior courses that was written in. So I wrote one for this course. So there's 3 lessons, and they're all hyperlinked there and with an assignment. And so the main assignment is basically looking at a story map and looking at the importance of water to different Indigenous communities and looking at we go through a series of looking at like the spiritual relationships that are unique to Indigenous communities. How can we deal with these issues and some aspiring impacts of these groups and individuals? And so I also love to show Autumn Peltier as someone who's a big advocate for water issues in Indigenous communities, which I'll get to in a second. We created this action planning wheel to help guide their ideas for brainstorming on like what are some of the issues, what kind of action needs to be done, what's the knowledge around water and how are they using it in that community. So this is part of the assignment. And it really does address like the what's where, why there, why care, who's affected, which is the anchor chart that I was talking about at the beginning of the PowerPoint, looking at various perspectives, looking at stories around water, the history. And so in every neighborhood, every community, there'll be different places that maybe you can take your students. And there's, I'll show you one example of one in Toronto by Lake Ontario that you could visit.
Tajali mentioned in the chat a documentary called There's Something in the Water.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah.
I'll make sure that's mentioned in the video notes.
Yeah, I'll share a couple of other ones. There's Something in the Water. I forgot about. I'll add that one too. The Water Walker is the one I'm going to be talking about, and looking at like goals and how do we achieve our goals if we want to make change. So the Humber River pedestrian bridge is somewhere that you could take a walking tour. We didn't get to it this year because it was a bit too far for a walking tour, but we could possibly cycle or take a bus there when things are a little bit more, well, now they are, but not every board is the same. But once we could get a bit further, the Humber River pedestrian bridge would be somewhere we could visit and talk about the relevance of Lake Ontario. And First Story Toronto has a tour that's offered that you could sign up for with your class to learn more about the cultural geography and Indigenous presence and history in Toronto, free contact. They also have an app if you wanted to download it. It's a great app, as well as the Driftscape app is another one that's really helpful if you are doing walking tours in your neighborhood. So that's one way you could get out and talk about water or any river that you are near. I'm sure a lot of you are near bodies of water in your communities. This is one movie that is coming out to Crave, and hopefully, you could purchase it maybe through your librarian. It's called The Water Walker, and the trailer and her Twitter account is hyperlinked there. And so Autumn Pelletier is a Canadian water protector and activist from Manitoulin Island. So this would be a great way to show how, how Autumn is really fighting for the preservation of water for future generations. And she's spoken at the UN many times. I don't know if anyone has seen it or so there's the Water Warriors. This is another documentary that link brings you to a free website, and it's a nice short film. So you could watch 20 minutes and then have a class discussion around it, looking at how fracking is affecting people's water and their way of life. And there's something in the water. I think I've seen that one as well. There's a lot of different ones. Does anyone have any other suggestions? So we got There's Something in the Water. Have you seen any great water films? There was another one, Watermark. I don't know if anyone's seen that one with Edward Bertinsky. Water Warriors, yeah.
Are there services for virtual tours?
Virtual tours for where?
Like for other cities or?
The Driftscape app, I believe, here, I'll show you the website. Escape. I don't know if anyone's used this before. Driftscape app. Driftscape.com. Mm-hmm. And Driftscape, it's an app that I have on my phone, but you can also use it on the web. And I use this quite a bit when I'm going on field trips. And so this is like Ontario wide, so anywhere you are, you can definitely use it. So as you can see, I'll just show you where I was going in Hyde Park, and so there's different symbols, and so as you're walking through, you can just like click on it, and then it tells you a little bit of history behind that location. So it's really a really good website. I highly recommend you download it onto your phone. And so, I encourage my students to download it, and also, if you're a teacher, you can pull it up and talk at each one of the stops as you go through it. So like, I remember doing the walk for the first time, and I'm like, oh, let's learn about this monument. And so we just pull it up. This is from now. So there's a lot of different databases within this Driftscape app, which is quite helpful. So there's the First Toronto, that's the symbol for First Toronto. There's the library, there's Historica, and a bunch of other ones. Has anyone ever used this one before?
We've had some other recommendations. After the Last River.
Okay.
A book, The Water Protectors.
Oh, yeah, The Water Protectors. I heard of that one.
Marshes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. I thanks for posting that link. So it's a great link, especially if you want to do local walks. So let's go back to this. And I'm not sure if you're not in TDSB, if you can have access to this guide, but you can try clicking on the link. It was a group of geography teachers that got together and created different resources that we use in our classroom around Indigenous resources. So it's a few years old now, but it's got a lot of great links, especially like some mapping websites as well.
Yeah, that one's protected, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, I think it's only for TDSB teachers, so I don't know if there's anyone here from TDSB. So that's okay. So this is for the grade 12 course. A lot of people, I'm sure, teach world issues. This is one of the more popular courses in schools. And so this one, I was trying to deal with like local issues and how I could get kids outside dealing with two different issues, so food issues and litter in our community. So the first one was about food waste. And so we had a pre-activity using GIS, looking at food security. And that was kind of like, we're just talking about food and all the different issues around food. So we did a little activity with that. And so the sheet has the link to the ArcGIS it was already pre-made story map around food security. And then solving food issues in our community, the assignment. So we were looking at food issues. Originally, this assignment was just for food waste because I was part of a contest with the Jane Goodall Foundation, and we focused on food waste for that one. But then I thought, well, let's just tweak it and make it about our school and any issue that our school needs help with, whether it be food accessibility, nutrition, or maybe your school has a cafeteria and you want to look at different issues like, is the food healthy in your cafeteria? Do you have a lot of food waste? Do you have a green bin or composter? And so what could be something that could help with one of these issues in your school? So like one day we'll just go around and explore, and we'll go walking into the cafeteria, taking a look at the garbage, looking at interviewing the cafeteria people and seeing like, if they are composting. And also interviewing students. And so they make videos as well. A lot of them are, the exemplars are like videos or a PowerPoint with videos. A lot of them will look at food issues at their home and then figure out, like, maybe they'll interview their parents. Some of them were vegan. Some of them were really big composters. One person had a chef for a dad. And so they talked a lot about different food waste and looking at local food. So these are 3 exemplars on different issues that students chose to focus on. So food waste and composting, ethics and meat consumption, and food waste, looking at surveys. And so they use a survey and flyers to communicate it. So I always like to get them to connect with their school community, and even looking at heat or like an environment club, and connecting with the environment club. Even if you have a school newspaper, making announcements, right? So you can, in the past, I've done a lot of these activities when maybe we were like on strike and we couldn't do environment club. And so then I would do some of these things through the courses that I teach. So that was one thing that I would do to kind of integrate environment club and the course as well. I'm just going to pull up the assignment just so I could show you.
There's a mention that the ethics and meat consumption document is also not viewable, but I just jotted it down and we can take care of it after the session.
Yeah, I don't know if I can change the privacy settings on that one because these are all students that have submitted videos, and that one might be, I'm not sure, but I'll check it, yeah. So here is the assignment of solving food issues in our community. And so I really like to keep it like open-ended, and that also helps with the different types of learners, and they can present it in any way that they want as well. And it was actually quite nice to have different types of assignments in the way that they presented them. So sometimes they were videos, sometimes they were written reports. They could have done a story map, a display board. No one actually chose this display board, which is funny. And so they end up presenting to smaller groups their ideas. So one group will present to another group. And I do that sometimes if I don't want to sit through like 30 presentations. They'll do smaller presentations within there because I have groups in my classroom. And so I kind of like just having the smaller informal groups, and then they peer evaluate each other. So this is the rubric, and so their seminar presentation is a smaller part of their final evaluation, and I mark the rest on my own. So that is for that assignment, and I did quite like the outcomes of those projects. One really cool thing that happened with this whole idea is before COVID, I had like a cross panel. So I invited local organizations. Feed It Forward is an organization that's really close to our school that takes food waste from different restaurants or bakeries and so they were going to throw it away, but they actually rescue the food and they turn it into something else. And so the bottom 2 pictures are us deboning a bunch of ribs that were going to be thrown away. So they boiled down the ribs in this huge Humber College kitchen. And the girls chose this topic, and they came to volunteer and to also take videos and interview the Feed It Forward staff. And so you can imagine the smell of boiling ribs for a couple of hours. And I don't really eat meat, so I'm smiling in the picture, but I'm not really happy about what I'm doing. But I felt good that we were rescuing food. But so that's one thing that they have. So Second Harvest also came. We had a connection through a teacher whose daughter works for Second Harvest, and she came and talked about their food rescue program. We have a community gardens nearby, so I invited the person in charge of the gardens, and there's a farmers market too. So, perhaps you have some of these in your community, and you could invite them for cross-panel discussion. So we had 5 people, I think, in total, and they had a couple of minutes each to talk, and then they just kind of circulated around the classroom, and that's how the students kind of figured out what topic they wanted to do after they heard from them and they got a chance to talk to them. And we also started vermicomposting, which was composting indoors with red wigglers. And that's my grade 9 setting it up and being really excited about throwing in the worms. So that was fun. This was a cleanup that we did with the grade 12 class. This was in semester 1 of this year. We did a local park cleanup. There were a lot of neighborhood complaints about how dirty the park was, and it's all because of our students, when really everybody uses the park. But we were more than happy to go and clean up the park. So we did a cleanup with our class and found a lot of masks and it was around Halloween. So we found a lot of Halloween candy. And so we went to do the cleanup, but they also, I told them to take pictures as well and to see what is the big issue in our community, what kind of trash is there. And so we started this campaign first through YRE contests, but I didn't submit any of them for the contest this year, but in the previous years I have. So there's an assignment with all the differentiated assessments, and I'll show you an exemplar as well.
Dimitra, there was a question about how you got your worms.
Oh, I just, they mailed them to me. It was quite funny, actually. They were in this carton. I'll include it in the email when you send it out to everyone. I think it was called Cathy's Composter, something like that. You'll have to find somewhere local to you, but she did mail them to me, and they weren't that expensive. And that was an indoor composter. We used the Environment Club money to pay for it. It wasn't that expensive. It was $120, I think. And it came with coconut husk and worms and instructions on how to keep them nice and cozy. It's great. I've done it twice before, but you have to be careful because if you put too much food in there, they can drown. This new system that I have, it's like a stool. You can't really drown them because there's pretty good drainage in it. The old ones used to be just like a big plastic tote. And we used to have a food course in my old school, and their fruit salad lab really overwhelmed the worm composters. So I don't suggest you put too much fruit in all at once from a fruit salad lab. So here's the Literalist campaign assignment. And so again, I like to differentiate and let them go and just pick what form you like. And so here's where they wrote an article for our local school newspaper, which is really nice. We have an Earth Day assembly every year, so some of that stuff will be recycled into our Earth Day assembly video that we used. And they did a lot of poster collages. I have some photos and photo essays, and some of them did videos. So lots of different ways to do this, and that's the rubric. So it was, I thought it was a really good assignment. They really liked it. So here's some examples that I have up in my classroom, and it's a good way to decorate your classroom too, because sometimes, we're stuck on the computer. So the one on the left, I really love how we, don't trash the world. And a lot of these had associated write-ups to explain. The second one, she wants to become a fashion designer, and so I encouraged her to make something along those lines. And sure enough, she used the masks that we found a lot of masks, and she made a 2-piece dress out of it. Still hanging. And then the last one was really cool. So they actually contacted this company that sometimes works with Uber Eats or different takeout organizations, and you can actually have metal containers to get your takeout in. And it's like a very small organization in Toronto, and they're hoping to expand. So it's a bit of a comment about like styrofoam takeout containers and how they're all ending up in the landfill. And it was like it rotates around and you can actually twirl it. So we're actually going to have it on display during Earth Week in the rotunda, in the front foyer. And a lot of these are going to go up during Earth Week. So it's a good way to kind of throw on. There's some other ones. So someone took all the garbage that they collected and made a collage. And if you've ever seen Wasteland, it's a great documentary where they have, they make like huge art portraits of people with garbage. And then some other ones about like cigarettes and the roll up the rim contest. That's from a couple years ago, and a diorama. Feel free to make comments and let the worm comment. So other cool links that maybe you've heard of are, there's the Esri Canada website in case you don't have a single sign-on for your board. Our World in Data is an amazing website. I got to show you that one. It's too good to not show you. And maybe some people have used this. Let me know if you have. So there's lots of cool, like let's say you're doing famine. And so there's maps and charts, and so and it goes by so lots of cool charts and different graphs, and sometimes you can change the graphs into the map. Let me see if I can find one. Maybe I picked the wrong topic.
Is it possible to download any of the raw data from any of these sites?
Yeah, that's another workshop. Yeah, there is a lot of data that you can download. And of course, I picked the one that doesn't have a map. I'm surprised. Let me, no. A lot of these have like graphs and let me go back to the top. So you can pick different topics. Access clean water. Let's do clean water since that was one of our topics. Oh, there we go. Finally a map. There's lots of maps on this website, of course, all the ones I chose. So you can show it goes also from 1990 to 2019, and you can see the death rates from unsafe water sources. It's also in chart form, looking at some of different countries, and you can add different countries to the chart, a table of all the data, and there's the download to download the data. So yeah, really great. One of the best websites, and the kids love using this for their projects. It's a great website. The Stop Disasters game. I don't know if you've ever played this game, but it's great for natural disasters. And I use it in grade 9 as well. Just we play earthquakes when we're looking at continental drift and plate tectonics. And so you play the game and you save your city from an earthquake. Great interactive. And in the grade 11 course, I play all 5. There's floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, wildfires, and I think hurricanes or typhoons, one of those. I already showed you the Nassau flood map. Maclean's has a great website, 22 maps of Canada. You've never seen it before, and they're kind of fun. I like looking through some of them in Unit 1 when we're looking at Map of Canada. And OAG has a Facebook page as well if you're interested in joining, or if you're on Facebook or social media. I always find some really cool links that they post, and a lot of current stuff with COVID and a lot of good stuff.
Somebody mentioned a visual capitalist website. Are you familiar with that?
Visual capitalist website. Do you have, Malia, do you have the website? Visual.
I think it's just if you Google visual capitalist.
Okay.
It's kind of like the one that you were showing, the world in numbers one.
Mm-hmm.
Graphs. about everything. Yeah.
Yeah, if anyone has any other really cool links and things to share, I'm done now. So you can unmute yourself and share, or type it in the chat. That's what this is all about, right? Going to workshops and learning from each other, and sharing ideas and what works in your classroom, and hopefully they work in others. But feel free to email me anytime if you want anything. If you couldn't open anything, I could always email it to you as well. But I will double check a couple of those links that you mentioned you couldn't open. And sometimes it's because I'm in Toronto and maybe you're in a different place. And hopefully you did fill in that survey. I'll show you the results actually. Let's go back to it. So when you are looking at a survey, it will show you the different participants and when they participated. And then I'll show you where everybody, how many years you've been teaching. So it's quite a spread. And so you can show these results in different ways, which is kind of cool. And sometimes when the students make their surveys, they'll screenshot all of these graphs. And this one isn't mappable, but there's other ones that are mappable. What subjects do you teach? So some historians here and maybe civics or other subjects, geography. Okay. And how comfortable are you? So not comfortable, a little comfortable, interesting. Interesting, there's only one person who's very comfortable. And I would just say start with Google Maps. That's the easiest way to get into GIS and just, exploring at a very basic level. And the students are very quick at figuring it out. I have the video tutorials there, but I find Google Maps is quite user-friendly and a good starting place. And looks like a lot of you are using that, so that's good. 17. 5 use story maps. Google Earth has some really cool interactive flyovers and flybys that are really cool. I find that they bog down my laptop when I can't show you I did it on my last workshop and my whole laptop froze on me. I couldn't even use anything else. So it does freeze a lot of other applications when you use it. And I don't know what others are, but that it would be interesting to know what else you are using. If you want to type in the chat, is there another GIS application that you want to share?
Melia, what's the part that you said you missed?
Just the beginning of the meet.
The survey?
Yeah, and just if there's a kind of a link to the assignments.
Oh, the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share that again.
Okay.
Thank you.
So here's the survey.
Yeah, GIS is sometimes people think it's scary, but it's actually not. I find when I have new teachers in my department, the video tutorials are such an easy way to okay, here you go. And then maybe they're not so intimidated to do their own demo. They can just show my video, and that might help. And then they can create their own video once they get more comfortable. I know I do that. I use a lot of stuff from OAG's website. The Scott brothers have an amazing, lots of cool resources that I've got from previous OAG workshops that are really helpful. And they do a lot of things with Excel spreadsheets that are really cool, and using Excel to create population pyramids, which is really great when we were in lockdown. Outdoor education. So yeah, everyone thinks it's important. And one thing you want to learn about today. So hopefully all of these things you learned, and these are lessons that are very easily, you're able to integrate them very quickly and make them your own. So that's the cool thing I just love about these surveys. And I should have asked you where you were from. So I can actually see where some of you are from. Oh, who's this over here? That's where is this person from? I don't know the lat long of Alpha Art.
Oh, that's all.
Who lives over there?
Port Francis.
Oh, cool. Very cool. That's you, Rob? That's good. Yes. Oh, Paul. Hi, Paul. I didn't see that you were here. Yes, please make a shameless plug. Go for it. I'll stop sharing.
Do you want to unmute Paul and
there we go. How's that?
Wonderful.
You guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Hackle. I'm the person that puts together the OIG conferences. And for the first time in a couple of years, we're hoping to get a conference this fall, the weekend after Thanksgiving up at York University. We're still waiting to figure out all the gory details, but please keep your ears open for that one. And we're hoping to have another mini conference that will be virtual in probably a month. So again, we'll be putting out information on that. And we're still putting together a lineup. It looks like we'll be doing an Indigenous and native plants gardening seminar. That'll be short and sweet because that's something I'm trying out at my school. And
me too.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, lots to share then. And we're still looking for a couple other ideas, but as usual, we'll have something probably more of the GIS with Alexander and Jean from Esri. So hopefully that will give a few more of you more opportunities. That's how I learned, by watching those two in action. And they are extremely generous with their time. And so don't hesitate to email Jean Tong and Angela Alexander at Esri. They will go out of the way to make sure things work for you.
Yeah, I'll give those to Peter to send out their emails. They
Awesome.
have a great GIS ambassador program that you could have people, like I'm getting someone from the Toronto Police who does crime analysis and uses GIS in their job. And they're going to come and talk to the high skills specialist majors and my sociology class. So they have lots of cool speakers. So that's all free.
Can't recommend them enough.
Yeah.
And they're just nice people.
Yeah, that's cool that you're doing the gardening. I don't know if anyone else is doing that. I have big stock tanks that I purchased last year, and we are going to start planting some native species in there. I don't know if anybody else is. Thanks for sharing that about the OAG conference.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Let me know in the chat or unmute yourself. I hope that you got something out of the workshop and you find something useful to bring back that you can use quickly, because that's also something that's important too.
Shall I go ahead and share again?
Yeah.
Okay. So thanks so much, Dimitra. As I was watching this, I was thinking, like, 20 years ago, how did they possibly teach geography without all these tools? Because this makes it fun. I don't know, is there anybody out there that was teaching it in those days?
Yeah, we would color maps. That's what we did.
Color maps, yeah, and crayons. And anyway, so tomorrow, everybody's going to be receiving, it should be tomorrow, everybody's going to be receiving an email with a link to the evaluation form. And actually, I'm going to give you the evaluation link in just a second. You'll also receive a link to Dimitra's slides and some of the other resources. And I will be taking the chat comments and condense those down. So any of the feedback that we got from you with recommendations on resources, I'll be including that as well. And this recording as well will be, the link to the recording will be included. Here is the link. So let me just drop this in for you into the chat. So I'd appreciate if you could perhaps take care of this feedback before you leave, because I know often we forget about it after. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Malia has a question. The guest speakers are from their GIS ambassadors with Esri Canada. So I'll include that in the email that Peter sends to you. And
then I want to put in a plug for the OTF PD calendar. The PD calendar is a great place. Like if you're thinking about taking an AQ or an ABQ, so instead of going to the different faculties of education or the different affiliates, you can just come here and all the qualification courses are listed here. So it's a good central resource. And I also want to put in a plug for the OTF YouTube channel. So please consider subscribing. And I'll drop the link in for both of those as well. And then lastly, obviously you know about the OTF Connect series. So our next one is Thursday, amplifying promising practices in elementary and secondary health and phys ed. And then of course we have, it's a whole series. This is the 5th of 10. So there's the link if you want to attend more. So anyway, any last comments? Okay, thanks so much, everyone.